We chose the Sawtooth Mountains wilderness because of the proximity to San Diego and because we've been here in the past and we just enjoy what it's like around here. We also like the rugged terrain and there's various recreational opportunities such as hiking and etc. The area is 33,610 acres roughly, managed by the Bureau of Land Management. It's roughly an hour east of San Diego near Anza Borrego State Park, roughly 6,000 feet above sea level, and it was designated as a wilderness area in 1994. Vehicles are generally not permitted with few exceptions. The area faces many current day challenges that we will get into later. Climate change is a big problem that is still being tackled, starting with a management plan that we will cover. Controversies around this land have also arisen over time, involving Sawtooth and its surrounding towns and parks. These controversies start back in the gold rush and all have involvement in conservation. We'll also hear from a park manager later on in this video. Please enjoy the rest of our video.
Let's start off with the history. Looking at Mount Laguna, you can just imagine the rich history that has taken place on this land. Dating back millennia, people have called this area home. The first inhabitants of this land were the Kumeyaay people. The Kumeyaay have a cultural and spiritual connection to this land, using it for all necessities and ceremonial practices. The Kumeyaay were accustomed to this land, seen in the many artifacts still present in this area. The Kumeyaay were soon to face challenges from settlers. These conflicts also often involved many conservation issues that fit well into this class. The arrival of the Europeans meant many changes were coming to this land. One of these changes was mining. The nearby city of Julian became a hub for mining in the late 1800s. The changes this sudden boom brought on were alarming, and a rapid development of the land meant some people were pushed out. Inactive mines are remnants of the past for some, but many view them as a haunting reminder of the land that they lost to newcomers. Here is a quote showing this sudden change. Of course, the arrival of so large a quantity of rich gold-bearing quartz created an intense excitement in the town. A stampede immediately ensued, and the road has now for several days been lined with teams of every description and men mounted and on foot en route to the mines. From persons who returned yesterday, we learned that there are now on the ground not less than 600 persons, and the number is increasing daily. This goes into land controversies. The first land controversies in this area came around when the first European settlers came, in the late 1800s. Quick land grabs were plenty, and for the first time the land was sought after. Many disputes arose around this time debating who gets what piece of land. This was of course done with no word from the native people. On our drive out, you pass through a reservation, BLM land, and state land in a span of 30 minutes. These vast differences in ownership are the result of century-old disputes in the map, which often have a biased perspective. Once we got there, we were greeted with government buildings and pay to park sign. This is a sign of the growing tameness of this land. As far as land management goes, many owners maintain this wilderness and their approaches all differ. One management plan for the Cleveland National Forest covers climate change. The description is as follows. The project proposes to restore forest health on 4,356 acres of montane conifer hardwood, and hardwood forested stands, which have all been adversely influenced through either a lack of natural, recurrent, low-intensity fire over the past century, or have experienced uncharacteristically high-severity wildfire over the last 2 decades. Restoration of forest health would be accomplished through a series of actions. Fuel reduction, prescribed burnings, treatments to manage stand density, structure, composition, and surface, and ladder fuels to improve the forest's ability to recover from future disturbances such as wildfire, insect, and disease, drought, and the possible effects of climate change. The goals for this description are as follows. Number 1, improve the health of montane conifer hardwood, and hardwood stands. Restore portions of stands previously occupied by large California black oak in a forest stands which were lost due to the invasive gold-spotted oak borer. Improve structural health in the forest stands. Number 4 is improve habitat conditions for the California spotted owl. 5, reintroduce low severity fire into montane conifer forest ecosystems. And number 6, restore acres of conifer forest deforested from the 2003 cedar and 2013 chariot wildfires, which have not recovered naturally. This is all found on the website Climate Change Response Framework as a proposal to introduce to the park. As far as the landscape goes, on our hike in my plenty of hikes before on this land, I have always felt a connection to it. The vast pastures allow for beautiful sights through the trees. The pastures fill up with water during the rainy season, resulting in some muddy areas. There are several clusters of boulders along the hike, which allow for good picture sites and fun climbing areas. Wildlife surround these ponds and rocks as they provide water and shade. I had once seen a rattlesnake here and have heard of mountain lion sightings. The pastures are close to huge cliffs which overlook a vast desert basin. I enjoy these sites with awe as it is so close to a big city. A vast wilderness area is something needed in proximity to everyone. As far as recreation goes, the opportunities are plenty. Hiking is a major opportunity for recreation as seen in the many trails in the area. The Pacific Crest Trail cuts through this area, meaning many of those hikers stay in the park overnight during the spring and summer. Camping is also available at the park. Wildlife is plenty, so bird watching and plant observation are both staples in the park. On our trip, we were able to see much wildlife. The people who recreate on this land come from somewhat of a privileged background due to the cost of getting there and paying the fees to camp or hike. The visitor numbers have increased since COVID, which means people are more free to come back, and it's becoming more accessible to everyone. As far as visitor use management, I have to start off with my own experience. On arrival to the park, we were met with a toll to enter and park at the gate. Camping is also restricted via reservations and price. Private houses are in the wilderness area, and according to my research, their footprint is limited. Speed limits are slower than normal to protect wildlife and hikers. I saw on our hike that businesses also have to have permits in order to operate. These restrictions help keep the land pristine. What's your name and can you explain your job?
So my name is Candace Dallas, and my job is a camp host for Laguna Campground up in Mount Laguna, California. And as a camp host, we welcome people into the campground. Those with reservations, we encourage them to go to this site if they know where it is, and then we check them in right there. We also have first come, first serve sites, and we let people know where those are on the map. They can go there. They can actually take an envelope and pay. They'll put their envelope in the little, what we call the Iron Maiden up front, and then stick the receipt either on the post or on the dashboard of their car.
Sounds good. Have you always worked at Mount Laguna?
This is my second year working here. We work from late March to the end of October.
Okay. How did you get started working with the park for Mount Laguna?
So about 3 years ago, my husband and I decided that we wanted to travel and live this life. And so we bought an RV, and we proceeded to put ourselves out there for campgrounds to find us. And there's a website you can go to called workcamper.com. And you can put your resume out there, a video of your, introducing yourselves. And we were found by a KOA in New Hampshire. That was our first camp hosting, campground worker kind of job. And we really liked it. So then we started to do other ones. We've also worked in Desert Hot Springs. And so then that led us to applying at Vista because they have they have 600 campgrounds around the U.S. And so we said, we'd like to be in Southern California. And someone called us and said, hey, we have an opening. And that was that.
Sounds great. Yeah, what is your favorite part of this position?
My favorite part of this position is being able to be outdoors and live where you work. So basically the forest, we live in the national forest in our motorhome. So that's one of my favorite parts, is being able to be outside every day.
Yeah, I can imagine. Okay, so I'm going to change up a little bit. It's something a little more serious. But what's your working for a national park? I'm assuming you have some knowledge about like conservation and sort of wilderness practices. And about that, what have you noticed, what's your perspective on climate change and what we could do to improve that?
So the first thing you asked was about conservation and about being able to camp in the forest. The first thing I would point out is pack in and pack out. Now, that's been a moniker that's been around for years and years and years for people who camp. And all that means is whatever you take into the campground or the forest or the national park, you also take out with you. You don't leave anything. You don't leave trash. You don't leave, basically just footprints. That's it. And that's kind of gone by the wayside, but it's really something that we need to bring back. Because what we notice is people leave a lot of trash. First-time campers are especially really bad at that because they'll buy brand new air mattress, brand new tent, and all these other things, and then they'll unbox them at the campground and leave that trash here. And what I would like to stress is to do all that unboxing at home and just bring the things that you need.
Yes, I agree. I'm a sustainability major. I don't know if you know this, but me and my partner are taking a class at San Diego State University on wilderness and leisure experience. So I just felt like you'd be a great person to interview for this. Yeah, no, I really appreciate it. I think we got everything we need. I appreciate it. And you're allowing me to use this interview?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, you can use it. Can I add one more thing to that?
Yes.
And that is fire control.
Yeah.
And so we are about 2 campgrounds that are allowed to have open fires here in the San Diego County area. And it's really important that we keep our permit. So a lot of times people have out-of-control fires in the fire ring, or they will gather more than just kindling. They'll gather big, large logs that don't fit in the fire pit, logs that have already started to decompose or have the mushrooms on them. And so the forest needs that decomposition. And we'd really rather people not gather large logs to build a fire. They can bring firewood with them from the same county, or they can purchase it here and know that it is local wood and it's been cured and dried. A lot of times people are gathering logs in the forest and they're wet. They won't burn. All they're going to do is smoke. And you've taken a habitat away from the local wildlife. So that's something else that I wanted to stress to you as well.
Okay, wow, yeah, that's the first time I've heard of not wanting to use sticks from the forest. That's something.
Sticks is one thing. Like kindling is small sticks, but people are gathering large logs.
Logs, okay.
So, yeah, big stumps, and 4 feet long. that's something that we don't want them to do.
Okay.
If you figure, if we have 400 to 500 people coming to the campground each week, if everybody gathered that way, there would be nothing left.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I get that. That makes a lot of sense. I appreciate you sharing that with me.
Sure.
This your interview will be part of this video, and it'll be on YouTube.
Okay.
And I'll send it to you once we publish it. It should be published by this Thursday or Friday.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much.
Appreciate you guys.
Yeah, it was a pleasure
All right.
talking to you. Bye.
Bye.
Now for part 2, connections to the class debate. There are actually several connections between the class debate and our wilderness area, which was the Sawtooth Mountains Wilderness. Both lands were previously inhabited by Native American people. In the case of the Sawtooth Mountains Wilderness, the Kumeyaay. Both lands struggled to find a compromise between protecting the trees and wildlife and allowing for activities and recreation, as well as opportunities for economic growth, like mining and lumber. Both situations have an endangered species of the avian variety. In the case of the Sawtooth Mountains Wilderness, it's the spotted owl, and then for Paradise Valley, it is of course the Chia falcon. Both want to allow for some forms of recreation on the land, but ideally not at the expense of the health of the land or those living on it. The debate decision was very similar to the way the Sawtooth Mountains Wilderness is being managed, in the sense that both lands found a compromise between protecting the land and its flora and fauna, while still allowing for controlled use of the land and recreation such as hiking. Both lands now have few opportunities for economic growth outside of recreation. It appears the Sawtooth Mountains Wilderness is more strictly controlled and has a higher legal standard for wilderness management, as generally no vehicles are even allowed on the land, and even entrance onto the land is permitted, and in most cases requires permits and or money. My jury decision remained the same after visiting the Sawtooth Mountains Wilderness. I agreed with the majority of the class in that a compromise was necessary and that zoned recreation areas was the most fair to all parties. Unrelated to me visiting the wilderness, I also realized that after the fact, that it is also crucial to consider economic well-being of the people that reside on the land as well. If no one can afford to live there, then all the recreation opportunities begin to lose their purpose, so it's unwise to only consider protecting the land. The opportunity is usually found as a compromise, or the answer is usually found as a compromise of many options and may always be changing. As Nash has mentioned, the transfer of land is a lengthy process and may not ever be final. There will always be debate over the best use of land, and factors are always changing. New species can become endangered, economic situations can worsen, social and political ideas can change, and even natural factors like erosion or natural disasters can change the game completely. It's important to set reasonable boundaries when deciding on the use for land. The stricter regulations are, the less people can and will be able to appreciate the wilderness, and that can affect society negatively as a whole, as well as awareness for wilderness-related issues. According to the Visitor Capacity Guidebook, pristine wilderness can handle roughly 2,189 recreation visitor days per year. Primitive can handle 12,281 recreation visitor days per year, which is roughly 6 times as many, and semi-primitive 20,709 recreation visitor days per year. When you have more people visiting a wilderness area, it is an opportunity to educate more on how to take care of the area and how to respect it. Of course, it is also a double-edged sword, as there is also more people disrupting the land and more opportunity to cause damage. It is clear that there will always be many factors at play when it comes to deciding what is best for protected land and the people that reside on it, as well as its use for recreation. Thank you for listening to our presentation on the Sawtooth Mountains wilderness and how it is connected to topics addressed in class, the readings, and the class debate.